Hello, everybody. Hope you're having a fantastic Friday so far today. I did not expect to be able to be with you today, but I'm very excited to be able to be with you today. Obviously, I was meant to be down in Queenstown right now. I'd actually, on at the Coalface Live episode last Friday, I had mentioned that I was going down to Queenstown for the Retail Global Conference this week, and then I was extending my week and turning it into a bit of a holiday with my fiance Sarah. We're going to stay down there and do some skiing and then come back on Sunday. Obviously, the New Zealand government had different ideas in its response to the community case of COVID that was discovered on, I think it was Tuesday. And in fact, I flew down on Tuesday and then promptly was returned back to Auckland on Wednesday. So I was able to change my flights, and basically we were just starting to get warmed up. We were having our intro evening together where basically you got registered and logged in as a delegate, or in my case, a speaker. And then we were having sort of the opening drinks and meet and greet session with all of the vendors in the vendor workspace there, or the vendor presentation space. And then, of course, the New Zealand government came on, and the conference organizers came into the room and just notified us that because of the community COVID case, that it was looking like the government was going to lock down, and that it was up in the air whether the conference would proceed. And then, of course, I think it was at 6 p.m. or whatever it was when the government made its final announcement. And then we learned that the entire country was going into a level 4 lockdown, which is pretty much the highest level of lockdown, the most severe level of lockdown we've ever had in New Zealand. And basically the highest level that we have available to us in New Zealand, which is basically everybody has to go back home, and, to use a North American term, shelter in place. But for our purposes, it's lockdown, and you basically have a stay-at-home order for all but essential services, and being able to go shopping for food and essential products, and then being able to do exercise in your local neighborhood. So promptly had to try to change my flight, which I was able to do, and I was able to come home the very next day. So it was a whirlwind trip. Was in Auckland, went down to Queenstown, and then straight back to Auckland again within 24 hours. So wasn't an ideal outcome, that is for sure, but I was able to, before the lockdown officially commenced at midnight, was able to go out to dinner with a few friends from the industry, thanks to the team over at Starship and Hawk and Steel in particular. And it was great to catch up with quite a few people that I haven't seen in a very long time in person. And then to be able to go out to dinner and have a few drinks and relax and have a chat and shoot the breeze with people in the industry. So all is not lost. However, the conference will go on in a limited way as a virtual conference next week on Monday and Tuesday. So I still have a few speaking sessions and slots next week, but it will be 100% virtual. So enough about that. I came back to a very busy week anyway, and had to reschedule some meetings and some calls, obviously working from home full time, and just move some things around to try to plug all of the gaps that suddenly opened up in my schedule. So super exciting to be here with you. Was not thinking I was going to be able to, but ultimately am able to. And I'm really thankful that I am, because there's a lot of e-commerce news this week that I'd like to cover off with you and give you my take on. And I do tremendously look forward to these Friday sessions with you. They are one of the absolute highlights of my week. I look forward to spending time with you every single week, and I look forward to delving into some of the news that you may not necessarily be hearing anywhere else, or at least hopefully bringing a slightly different take, or overlaying a slightly different lens to it, based on my own unique set of experiences in the industry, and obviously based on my geolocation, based here in Auckland, and focusing heavily on the ANZ region. And in that vein, in particular, almost all of the stories this week are based around the ANZ region. We've got one story that is not, but basically this is an ANZ-focused news week. But I'm also drinking a absolutely beautiful small batch bourbon today, which I will show you. It's called Larceny, and as you can see, I received it last week, actually, from Whiskey and More, which is my preferred vendor of bourbons, and it's all e-commerce, it's all online, and they ship it to me. And this is a small batch bourbon, and again, just want to let you know, I am by no means a bourbon tasting expert. I don't sell bourbon, but I am an avid consumer of high quality bourbons and tequilas. And I have to say that this Larceny small batch bourbon is very, very nice. I had made a start on that bottle last week with a friend of mine when I visited him for dinner, and yeah, we both enjoyed it tremendously. So if you can get your hands on some Larceny bourbon, highly recommend it. It's got almost a slightly vanilla-y sort of taste with a heavy backing of caramel and a really clean finish to it. So really enjoying this particular bourbon. So I'll be enjoying that in our call today. I definitely need a bourbon after the week that we have had trying to get everything, and I had to go to the supermarket today and fight a ridiculous crowd to stock up on all the groceries we're going to need over the next week, because we don't know how long this lockdown is actually going to be. The government has signaled that it's highly likely to last longer than a week. So initially it was going to go Wednesday to Wednesday, meaning that we would, in theory, the earliest we would be out of lockdown in Auckland would be Wednesday this week. But the government's already signaling, because of the other cases that they, in theory, have found, that they're going to be likely extending the lockdown much, much longer than that. So we could be in lockdown for another month here in Auckland. We will just have to see how it goes. But without further ado, I will get into the news stories of the week that I want to cover off with you. And as per usual, if you put some commentary or questions in any of the three channels that I live stream to, those being LinkedIn, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live. If you stream any questions in there or comments in there, they will pop up on my StreamYard live streaming platform screen, and I will come back to those at the end and hopefully be able to have time to answer your questions and respond to your comments, and mostly just be able to say good day, because I really appreciate you spending time with me every Friday. I very much look forward to this. I look forward to it being almost like a Ask Me Anything type of a session on top of the weekly news. So if you don't have this session in your calendar every Friday, feel free to go ahead and do that. I would normally, in fact, set up a notification that this live stream is going to happen in advance. But this week, it was kind of a last-minute thing that I was able to go ahead and do this Friday session. So sorry that there wasn't the advance notice on LinkedIn, particularly that this was going to happen. But it will be a normal post once the live stream ends. So hopefully you'll still get something out of it. So without further ado, we will jump into the news of the week. And the first bit of news is... it made me laugh, actually, when I read it, and that is that Barbecues Galore doubles down on a digital with marketplace strategy. Now, Barbecues Galore is obviously a barbecue and outdoor-focused retail chain. They're an omni-channel business, so they sell online as well as have a retail store estate. And they do a good job. By all accounts, they're growing very fast. They have introduced underneath their new CEO, or he's not that new anymore, Angus MacDonald, who I've actually known via LinkedIn for, I think, about 10 years now. He came in as CEO, I think, about 3 years ago. Don't quote me on this, 2-3 years ago. And he really brought his experience with digital transformation. He was formerly GM of Super Retail Group for the Super Cheap Auto brand. And he did a very large program of work over his, I think it was 5 years at Super Retail Group. He helped introduce into that particular group Salesforce Commerce Cloud / Demandware. He put them through quite a significant digital transformation program, and he helped them update their in-store experience to bring a lot more phygital experiences in-store. He helped to create a few amazing concept experiences inside Super Cheap Auto in his time there, and he's effectively replicating his experience and replicating his tech stack and his experience, based on his experience and what worked really, really well for him at Super Retail Group / Super Cheap Auto. He's bringing all those learnings and creating a similar sort of digital transformation strategy for Barbecues Galore. He's midway through that transformational shift. Under his leadership as CEO, they have replatformed to Salesforce Commerce Cloud. I'm not quite sure. I can't remember what platform they were on before. So he's rolling out a very similar strategy. He's come up with some concept physical retail experiences that fuse that online-offline experience as well. And they've also announced, and this is the news of the week that I'm referring to, but I just wanted to give you the backstory of Barbecues Galore. And they've announced a partnership with Amblique, who is their digital commerce partner. So For those of you that don't know, Ambleek is an e-commerce agency based in Australia. And for many years, they had the exclusive on the Demandware platform, which became Salesforce Commerce Cloud once Salesforce acquired it. They had the exclusive partnership agreement with Demandware to be the exclusive partner of the platform in Australia, and I think actually New Zealand, for a number of years. And so they have deep experience with the platform, and so Ambleek is their e-commerce agency partner. And they have partnered further with Marketplacer. Now, Marketplacer is a marketplace platform. It's an Australian-based and built and developed marketplace platform. It is a platform. It's a marketplace platform that's used by several other very large marketplace merchants in Australia, including Myer, and it runs their Myer marketplace. And there's other brands that also use this platform. So it basically provides you all of the plumbing, all of the systems to support both the demand side and the supply side of selling via a marketplace model. So it allows brands and merchants to connect to the marketplace to push their products into the marketplace. And it also allows the retail selling of those products through the marketplace front end or the e-commerce front end of the platform. And so what Marketplacer said is they've got an out-of-the-box connector with Salesforce Commerce Cloud, which means that by definition, it's going to be very easy for Barbecues Galore to push its own products into its own marketplace, but also onboard other brands. And what they've said is they really want to take back some of that market share that it has lost in the overall backyard and outdoor space to some other bigger players. And so they really want to, by onboarding new products by other brands, they want to expand their range quite dramatically. And so, Angus called out, for example, he said, the new marketplace offering will create a world-class online shopping experience that extends our offer well beyond the four walls of your local store, affirming our place as Australia's destination for the complete whole of backyard and outdoor experience, building a true online community. So they have big ambitions to grow their private product range as well. And they think that Marketplace's technology, they'll be able to onboard sellers very quickly and products very, very quickly to accelerate their digital growth trajectory. So they want to take that next step. They want to grow, they want to level up, and they believe that a marketplace strategy is the way to do that. Now, what's interesting about this is that I've called out many, many times before that I think Australia is one of the most marketplaced and potentially over-marketplaced countries in the world. And I think there's going to be dramatic consolidation of the number and scale and types of marketplaces in Australia over the next decade. But obviously, they're still jockeying for market share, jockeying for position. And I guess if you're a brand like Barbecues Galore and you look at your traffic statistics from your website, and perhaps you are, for example, looking at the site search data that's coming into your website for products that you don't carry and perhaps aren't necessarily going to be carrying as a direct to consumer retail product that you're going to be selling yourself, or a B2C retail product that you're going to be selling yourself, or an own brand product that you're going to be developing and selling to the customer. But you want to be able to capitalize on that traffic and capitalize on that latent demand through search. And there's other ways to identify that demand for products that you may not necessarily carry on your website. Then obviously Barbecues Galore has done the math. They've looked at this data and they have decided that a marketplace is the best way to meet this demand. They can clip the ticket on the sales going through their marketplace, whilst also dramatically expanding the range that they carry without having to carry all of the cost of actually buying and warehousing and selling and distributing all of those products directly to their own customers. They can effectively pass those orders on to the merchants who listed those products on their marketplace for direct fulfillment to the end customer. So, they've obviously, Angus and his team have obviously done the math, and they've worked out that, hey, this is a fantastic route to market that is untapped for us. So we're going to pull the trigger and make it happen and see how it works out. So it's going to be interesting to see how this does actually play out. We had obviously the Creme marketplace, which never really got off the ground in Australia. We've had a few other marketplaces that had either false starts or ultimately had to shut down. But we're still growing at a great rate of knots in Australia in terms of the number and scale and size and growth rate of marketplaces. There's over 10 significant major marketplaces in Australia and new marketplaces coming on board. What feels like almost every single day, similar to what Barbecues Galore, who also is becoming a marketplace owner as well. So, if we look at Bunnings, they've done exactly the same thing. There's a number of other very large scale retailers in Australia have established their own marketplace to increase the amount of products that they carry whilst also clipping the ticket on every sale that goes through their brand. So good on them. I'm going to be watching with curiosity to see how this one plays out. But yet another Aussie marketplace launches, which is no great surprise if you watch this market at all. Now, the next piece of news is the one piece of news this week that is not ANZ focused, and that is that the Wall Street Journal has reported that Amazon plans to open large retail locations, basically large department stores. Now, when we say large for Amazon in this context, they say that the average size of store that Amazon is targeting for their physical retail stores is 30,000 square feet. Now, when we compare that to the typical 100,000 plus square feet of typical department stores in the United States, then obviously it's less than a third of the size of your typical department store. And I've got a lot of thoughts about this announcement by Amazon, and that is that obviously, Amazon wants a much larger piece of the retail pie and retail presence to sell clothing, and they've called out that the primary focus will be clothing, household items, and to facilitate exchanges. But when you're as large as Amazon and you are, when you constitute as a business around 50% of all e-commerce dollars spent in North America, or at least in the United States, you really have to go into very significant and very large new markets to move the needle enough on revenue to justify going into those new markets or going into those new channels or developing new sales models. And so they've obviously done the math and they've worked out that, hey, this makes sense. And we've reached a level of saturation with online consumers that it's going to be hard to significantly grow the sheer number of consumers that we have already in the United States that are buying through us online, that are already Prime members, etc. So how would we go about significantly moving the needle in terms of sales? Well, now we need to go after those customers who don't buy with us online because perhaps they just don't buy online very much themselves at all. So we know that based on data out of the United States, that around 15 to 17% of all retail is e-commerce. And so that's a pretty small piece. It's a less than 20% piece of the total retail pie. And Amazon only has 50% of that small slice of the retail pie. So Amazon clearly wants a much bigger slice of the overall retail pie. Establishing a physical retail footprint apart from Whole Foods, which it already has acquired and is underneath the Amazon umbrella. But by establishing further Amazon branded stores, and they have done some concept stores, they've done some liquidation stores, they've done some smaller format stores before, but nothing significant and en masse that would be nationwide in the United States, for example. And what they said is that they have reached near saturation in online in the USA, so they do need to have new growth channels. They can acquire space very cheaply at the moment with the pain that overall retail is feeling in the United States, and with malls, for example, really struggling and big chains going out of business. There's lots of retail space coming up very cheaply for them to acquire or lease out of the United States. So it's going to be a relatively cheap expansion for them. And it's highly likely that these new locations are going to act both as click and collect locations, but also potentially ship from store locations as well. So looking to leverage that physical footprint for both online, offline operations and hybrid and omni-channel operations as well. And they've already called out the fact that it's going to be obviously a new channel for white labeled and Amazon branded products. And it is certainly, as I said, not their first foray into retail. Now, the thing that I'd like to call out here is that this is highly likely to be part of their overall twist the knife strategy against Walmart. And it's also interesting to call out that it was just, I think, in the last 3 days that Amazon announced that they have just surpassed Walmart as the biggest online retailer outside of China globally. Wow, absolutely staggering numbers. Now, if we look at Walmart by comparison, their most recent financial update shows that their online growth has slowed down dramatically. They increased only 6% in the last 3 months through July 31st. And if we look at the 2-year lens of Walmart, their online sales increased by 103%, which is not insignificant by any stretch of the imagination. So they're not, Walmart is definitely not failing. No one could say that. In fact, what they said is that they expect and Walmart forecasts that their online sales will reach $75 billion by the end of 2021. So certainly, Amazon and Walmart are locked in a death match. They are each other's single biggest competitors in the retail space. So I have no doubt that this decision by Amazon to establish a retail footprint has everything to do with its desire to encroach further on Walmart's turf, and Walmart's historical strength has been their store estate. So if Amazon can start to compete with Walmart in the physical store space whilst also continue to dominate in the online space, they will continue to give Walmart significant fits and continue to outgrow them moving forward. So let's just watch how Walmart responds to this. If they do, let's see what they intend to do, because they're already investing billions of dollars in online. So what do they do from here to try to compete with Amazon? It's going to be an interesting one. They're trying to grow their own marketplace very quickly. They've announced that they've doubled in the last 12 months the number of merchants selling through their marketplace and onboarded in their marketplace themselves. Walmart, this is. So both are trying to take pages out of each other's books to compete better and smarter with each other. Now, the interesting thing about this with Amazon's announcement is that there's absolutely no question that they will have completely synced and completely harmonized online, offline accounts, probably including Prime as well. So, Amazon as a tech-based, tech-driven company, the other thing that they haven't announced yet is whether they will have their Just Walk Out technology as part of this launch, or whether that may come later. It's quite different if you have a small Amazon Fresh store that's got Just Walk Out technology versus a 30,000 square foot, department store with Just Walk Out. That is a totally different environment to have Just Walk Out technology. Much higher complexity levels, much higher risk of shrinkage and loss and theft. So I suspect that they probably won't launch with Just Walk Out in the first instance, but they may develop it over time or pilot it in a couple of stores, as is typical for Amazon. They'll pilot it, they'll refine it, they'll get it perfect, and then they may roll it out to their wider store estate. So be very interesting to watch how this plays out and this death match that is shaping up between Amazon and Walmart moving forward. Now, next piece of news is that JB Hi-Fi has announced that their online sales growth has been exceptional as their overall profits rise significantly. So they have announced really strong year-over-year growth, with net profits increasing 67.4%. Online has for the first time ever gone beyond the 13th percentile of total sales. So it's now at 13. It composes 13.1% of total sales of JB Hi-Fi, which, for those of you who don't know, is basically a home electronics retailer here operating in ANZ. They have stores in Australia and New Zealand, and they're the 800-pound gorilla in the space. So it's going to be interesting to see how Amazon continues to compete with the likes of JB Hi-Fi as they expand in Australia and New Zealand, because JB Hi-Fi would have to be one of their most significant competitors in the home electronics and home small appliances, etc. space. So it's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out. Now, what JB Hi-Fi also called out is that their full financial year for 2021 gross profits increased by 13.4% to $1.33 billion, and gross margin uplift was 22.2%, driven by strong improvements in their key categories. And they called out specifically the growth in online sales as supporting their overall performance figures. And so they said that online sales increased 93% year over year to $780 million, up from 56.6% growth in financial year 2020. And as I said before, online now represents 13.1% of total sales, compared to only 7.6% of sales in financial year 2020. So nearly doubling their percentage, their top line percentage of sales being composed of e-com and digital sales between financial year 2020 and 2021. That's just staggering growth. And they called out a few different factors that have contributed to this. One is that there's been increased buying, or I guess an evolution of buying from home office equipment, because everybody's mostly set up now for working from home, but consumers trying to keep themselves entertained and their kids entertained, etc., during ongoing lockdowns and I guess movement restrictions between states, etc. So top line growth, it says that they have said, was heightened with consumer demand for electronics, home appliance, and home appliance products. So JB Hi-Fi continuing to kill it. I think their most significant competition in Australia is and will continue to be Amazon. So we'll see how that battle of the Titans shapes up over the next couple of quarters, months, and years. Now, next piece of news is that a online-only vodka from Australia sells out 2 weeks after launch. So we have a husband and wife team, Mitchell and Mary, and I'm probably butchering this name, Smilovitis, co-founders of Pure Play vodka brand Smilov Spirits. And they called out that I guess their business has performed far better than even they could have expected. And they are based in Margaret River on the west coast of Australia. They launched in only June of 2021, so not that long ago. And despite being online only, sold out within the first 2 weeks of selling online. And they called out servicing a burgeoning direct-to-consumer market the founders believe is ripe for disruption. They said, we didn't want to be a distillery. We are brand builders. We have no cellar door. We have no in-house bottling facility. We outsource all non-care activities in our business. We remain completely focused on our strengths, which lie in e-commerce, digital marketing, and fulfillment. So look, this is the new generation of internet-only brands. And, we've seen in America particularly that there's a lot of marketplace-only brands or marketplace-native brands. Pardon me. And we're now seeing more and more brands launch as direct-to-consumer, pure play, online only, and absolutely killing it in the process. And this is an amazing brand story. I mean, to sell out immediately when you launch only in June. We're only August 20th now, so I don't know what day they launched in June, but to basically be, a couple of months old and to completely sell out. They didn't give exact numbers that I saw in the announcement, but simply staggering that they're on this path of building a brand. And I think they are the template and the model that lots of new energy, new wave, 2021 and beyond brands will copy this model, will copy this template, will copy this framework, and be internet only, be direct to consumer only, even in traditional verticals that have been traditionally physical verticals. And they call that out specifically, even with their own brand. In this particular case, they say, people buy goods online, furniture, clothing, etc. How we've known it's not about pricing or even the ability to test product quality beforehand. It is a mindset that says we will go to a liquor shop a couple of days before the weekend and pick up a few bottles rather than sit at home and order a couple of bottles of vodka to be delivered to your door. However, that is changing due to obviously lockdowns and continued movement restrictions. And so people have time to shop online and it's more convenient, it's easier, and they can have it shipped to their door with very low risk and no contact. So yeah, good on them and congratulations. Now, there's another online-only pure play that has just launched in Sydney as well. So again, staying with that ANZ-focused theme. And they are called Geezy Go, Geezy Go. And this announcement came out, and basically it said Geezy Go has launched a digital supermarket serving Sydney, aiming to compete with Woolworths and Coles. Obviously, that duopoly, similar to what we have in New Zealand, there's a duopoly in the grocery space in Australia between Woolworths and Coles Group, and they offer under 20-minute delivery services, promising products priced similar to or lower than its rivals. And basically, they have a comprehensive. They say in the announcement they have a comprehensive range of local and branded food and grocery products, ranging from plant-based foods, pantry staples, pharmacy, and cleaning supplies. And they say that they basically prepare all orders in dark stores, and the delivery is done by motorcycle. So awesome to see, and I think we're going to start seeing this more and more and more around the world. The traditional grocery stronghold, the traditional grocery monopoly of 2 or 3 major players in every major region around the world, it's going to be a death by 1,000 cuts for these guys. And this is an example of a tech-led, e-commerce-led, pure play-led business that is going to be taking it to the major players in the market with a much lower cost structure and an ability to grow very, very quickly. And I applaud this. I absolutely applaud this. We have a duopoly here in New Zealand. They've got a duopoly in Australian grocery. Our groceries are astronomically and artificially high cost in both countries. And anything that brings more competition to the grocery market in ANZ has got to be a good thing. So I wish Geezy Go all the best. Now, another couple of very quick announcements. One is that, as per usual, every single week, on Thursday of this week, we dropped our latest podcast episode, which was episode 92. And it was one of my favorite episodes to date with somebody that I respect tremendously in the industry, which is Danny Phillips from Omnio. We were talking omni-channel and retail customer experience and how brands can leverage customer data for the benefit of the customer instead of weaponizing that data for marketing by the brand. And I just have a tremendous respect for Danny. I have a tremendous respect for his take on customer data. I have a tremendous respect for his take on customer experience and how brands can improve that for the benefit of the customer. So if you have not listened to that episode yet, you are missing out on a treat. Go ahead and go and listen to that. And I can't tell you exactly who yet. I'm going to be getting onto the podcast very shortly, but I have a few very, very well-known guests that are going to be coming up on the podcast. So if you have not subscribed yet, I strongly suggest you do. Go and search out at the Coalface podcast on any podcast engine, wherever you get your podcasts. I am there with at the Coalface podcast. Please go and subscribe. And if you like it and you do subscribe, please like, share, and comment, because it's how I am able to grow. It's how I'm able to show and demonstrate growth of the podcast so I can continue to go out and court bigger, more well-known brands, more well-known guests, more well-known technologies, and I'm able to bring those stories to you guys, and hopefully you can learn a thing or two from these tech vendors and providers, and also just about the concepts that we discuss in general on At the Coalface. So help a brother out, go subscribe, go recommend, go and share any episodes across your social network that you find interesting, because any podcast, it really lives and dies by word of mouth. Sure, of course, I publish my podcast episodes to the likes of LinkedIn, where I have over 22,000 followers, and that's fantastic, and I really appreciate that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, organic growth by people sharing good podcasts with their friends is largely how podcasts flourish. So please do me a favor. If you enjoy the podcast, please share it with your friends. Please share it across social and recommend it. And I would just super, super duper appreciate it. And it will allow me to do better, bigger, and better things for you via the podcast. Now, I guess just final word of note, I am absolutely gutted that the conference was canceled this week. It was the first conference I was going to be able to attend in over 18 months, and I was really looking forward to hanging out with industry colleagues and friends. However, we are able to do it virtually on Monday and Tuesday in sort of a conference light fashion. So I look forward to seeing any of you who had planned to go to the conference and had bought tickets. Look forward to seeing you online on Monday and Tuesday, and I hope you guys have a cracking weekend. I'm gonna have one more sip of my, and I'm very sorry about the sun shining in here. I've actually got to get some blinds for this place because I don't have any, and it's just sometimes this time of the day it just makes it too bloody bright to see. But anyway, I will come back to the commentary here. So, John, thank you very much. Really appreciate you joining me as per usual every Friday. I appreciate your input. Margaret River, great spot. Yeah, I haven't been there yet. Haven't been. To the West Coast. I've basically done all the East Coast and the big red center of Australia, but I have not done the West Coast. So thank you very much for spending time with me today, guys. I'll get out of the sunshine because I'm sure it's very hard to see me. And I look forward to, I very much look forward to hanging out with you again next Friday. I will be here as per usual, 4 p.m. New Zealand time, 2 p.m. Australian time, and look forward to sharing with you the week's news and my commentary and interacting with you via the questions and comments here. So have a fantastic weekend, and we will catch up with you next week. Cheers, guys. Appreciate your time.